out there watching from home, and to our live audience here, we are on the Meadow Road, just outside downtown Bruce Cove area, up from St. Anne's, in the St. Anne's Bay location, and at the home of Gail, John and Gail Montgomery. They are our hosts for the eve, and was a location on last year's On the Road series. So we're delighted to be back. And my name is Mary. I work alongside Gail, learning from her every day. And our guests tonight for the Wednesday Night Ceilidh are Joe MacMaster, who we just heard a raft of good D tunes from, along with Father David Rankin. Both familiar faces. So I can't imagine it's anyone's first time tuning in, but the plan for the evening is to play some tunes, have some chat. Maybe we'll coax out a song in the mix, and all in the next hour. So you can watch the hockey game yet. We are live tonight and taking it all in. And we haven't painted our colors, but we did find a Habs jersey. It was in the ditch.
Go Habs, go! Go Habs! Woohoo!
And it's worth mentioning too, we just finished off a delightful meal that Gail prepared for the whole game. So we had a great visit before our visit with you all, and so we're already off to a good start. Great tunes there, Joe. Do you remember any of the names of those for anyone wondering?
I guess I gotta remember what I played. Old Faithful was the first march.
Yes.
And then Laddie with the Platy.
Yeah.
Like Denar's favorite. Father Janamus Rankin.
Yeah.
Last Night's Fun.
Yeah.
What did I play after that? Old Smiths.
Right.
The Gravel Walk.
Yes.
Made of Castle Bar. Southern Melodies. That's it.
You did it!
That's good.
Do you kind of go with the flow, or do you have a set in mind when you start out?
Depends. I do both. I mean, a lot of those tunes, I've played them in similar succession before. Like, depending on where a tune will end on the fingerboard, might make it easy to transition into another one. So, gradually you find tunes that just pair well together, and I'll always kind of pair them together. So, not hard, fast, locked in. This is what I am playing, but there are certain tunes that jive well.
Yeah.
It's kind of my approach.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever works. I guess the more honed you are, the more you have just in a collection of tunes to pick from.
Yeah, if you can remember them.
Yeah, and how to get into them. It's always the hard part. Well, that's great. And we got to hear from you a few Ceilidhs back in Sydney. So
yeah.
We're in the home tonight, and we'll get maybe a little sense of life for you and David over there. So we're thrilled to have you both. Maybe we'll play some more tunes before getting too speechy over there.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Jigs and G.
What's the name of the last one?
I think it's called the Kasi.
Okay. Don't know it. It's
On
nice.
Natalie's
Is
CD.
it?
Yeah, it's on that one.
I'm not
Old
cluing into
tune.
it at all. Good stuff. Well, thinking of jigs and playing jigs makes me think too of all of the great square dancers that we have in the room. No pressure, but break out into dance anytime you like. Not enough. But all of the great dances that would have been up, and there still are, of course, but the dances that you would have grown up, where would the closest dance hall be? North River. North River. Yeah. And they were, when were they the heyday of those?
Oh gosh, it'd be a while
70s.
back.
In the 70s.
Is that
In the
okay?
70s, yeah.
And that was, who were the big players that were regulars?
I can remember going to Ceilidh Cremo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mike McDougall.
Mike McDougall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Charlie McCuspick.
Yeah.
Yes.
Joe Doucette.
Joe Doucette.
Okay. And then you guys would be making the rounds. You'd be going there. And where were the other hot spots you'd be going?
Bidet, a lot. Bidet was the biggest spot, but we kind of went, I don't know, over to Sydney if you
We went to Sydney a lot.
Sydney
Yeah.
a lot.
French Vale.
French Vale.
East Bay.
East Bay. Yeah.
Wow. And different sets everywhere. Or what would they?
We always do the Cape North sets.
We would do the
Yeah.
sets that were
Off the hall.
up the hall of that area, but we would also do the Cape North sets.
Right. And you'd have to come with a little crew then.
We always did.
We
We
always
always
had a
did.
set, yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
always did.
Because you have to have people that know it.
Yeah.
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 And you're still teaching it,
We are.
right? Even
Yes, 2 more nights.
2 more nights.
Tomorrow night, next Thursday, that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
If ever someone wanted to join, how do you? Or
Just go to the hall.
South Haven Hall
South Haven Hall.
on
yeah.
Tuesday.
Thursday night.
Thursdays.
Thursday night at 7.
Right on. That's great. So there's a lot to learn with that set.
There is, but it's a lot of fun.
Well, that's the main.
People have so much fun doing that.
I bet.
There's 2 right there.
Everyone's always laughing and
Yeah.
happy.
Carry on.
Like everyone's so happy to be there, and even if you know, can't do a step or nobody cares, you're just having
No,
fun,
That's it.
right?
It's always a laugh. Always.
Yeah. That's the best. That's what we're all aiming for, I think, in life.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
Gail and John done lots of them with us too.
Yes.
Well, they were actually teaching over us at one point.
Yeah, Gail and I went to my aunt's, I guess we'll call that today, my aunt's, but you and I were going out there.
Yeah.
Teaching it on reserve for a long time.
Can you remember being at that dance? Was it over in East Bay? And it was so packed. And our set,
Because they would do a jig and 2 reels,
Yeah.
and we would do 2 jigs and a reel.
yeah.
Yes.
But at one point, we lost one of our couples. It was that packed. They ended up in one set, and we ended up, when we went to join, we only had 3 couples. Yeah, it was not
you
good.
never saw them again.
No.
Or John's sister when she ended up in the other set in the fire hall in back. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. That's a
Well,
fun.
speaking of dances too, are you? There's a dance coming up.
Yes, yeah. We've got a dance coming up at Our Lady of Fatima Parish in Sydney River on May the 10th at 7 till 10. And it'll be Howie McDonald and Beverly McLean will be playing. And there may be some other musical guests show up too as well. And it's all to raise funds for the roof, the glebe roof, It's kind of fallen apart, and anyway, so people have been very generous in supporting that, and we had a dance March 1st back, and Joe played for it. It was great. So anyway, May 10th, 7 till 10, Ceilidh River.
At your parish.
At my parish, where I am.
Yes. Great.
We've also got a dance coming
Oh,
up
yeah,
on
you do too.
May 19th, Monday, May 19th. So it'll be a kind of 2-in-1 thing. So from 2 to 4, Mary Jane McDonald's coming down. They're going to do like a Tunes and Wooden Spoons episode. She'll be given a recipe. Those who want to go to that, there's tickets. You can call up Holy Family Parish and get more information on that. So that'll be from 2 to 4. And then there'll be a square dance in the evening from, I guess, 7 to 10. I'll be playing the music, and if you buy a ticket for the Tunes and Wooden Spoons earlier, that covers your fee for admission for the dance. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So May 19th, check it out.
City Mines.
City Mines,
and that's
Holy Family Parish Hall. Yeah.
Holy Family Parish is where you are.
Yeah.
So you're close.
Very close,
I'm
yeah.
close, 2 years away.
And you're 2 years away from your full ordination.
Or that's it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you're both here in Cape Breton, which is wonderful,
Mm-hmm.
and still making time for music
Yes.
and parish life and all the things.
Oh yeah.
It's quite, but so far so good.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome.
Good.
Yeah.
You're tough.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I'm conscious of how quick the time goes too. I wonder if we could get a song out of you, David.
Sure.
All of a sudden it's.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, I'll sing a Gaelic song for you. This is one I pulled it out at a session not long ago, and I screwed it up. I sang the wrong verse or whatever, and I said, no one's going to notice. And then there were 3 people there that I didn't know, and I went to talk to them to find out who they were. The young people. 3 of them were native Gaelic speakers. They all knew. They all knew what I messed up. But it was all that's on it. So it's Cuach Vich Gelandrin, the quaich of Galanders. The quaich is a little drinking cup or vessel. But in the story of this, it's actually a seashell that they're drinking out of. A young lad was sent away from a wedding for candles and rum, but ended up meeting an old fellow on the way who had whiskey. And so they had shared the whiskey, and the young fellow didn't make it back with any candles or rum. So that's the story. Swagon mauping chingaki asavonchi, hachefelle ochrum checham on the ropen. Hound me dish gevaardig, kun ga ik me gehouden. Waar kun naar de hulp, schik jou en wieken dashi. Noor hoek me tresh na houden, goro me jourig voor. Van hoe me echt kunnen, skin geinig me ik ben hem gaan. Hoorst je room verhaast, door spoel haastelen, gauw wensken lenen zich, gewelle stach maar in hem gaan. Sma hou kiri hou sarum, sma hou feinig met hem jem, jou vis me honje levig taken weg nam hannegus. Me maak de potje doei, vis ne suri punnen gauw en geen chorne pui, sagerga, geen aarnach mo hennebus. Noor wijsje nette, wat je gaat goed, wordt ne pijnsje, get weer geert een neisje en een heilen nog een dansen. A reep a groei en sheetje bound en chiemen in a jourie. Snor hennig goring goes at behooi of een town Sa mutig er a grachtig, ma grijfkin in a skrapig. Smuten wan gerrien lei op a wiekend haashig. Gaat je in karach skriepig, is meenen voor een noord. En kur gauwen jen in anje guggen, anje was nam sjouwes. Good a misje Gavin Checkles had bewecke gami hiener and drain down a ferstich, good hulum grow through down. Zulche peinach boven zag a sjouwe op ma hoelen naar a hulum gure gunnemie, kolholle naam of kroeswijn. Daar al het woorden van nou a pijn. Good a misje Gavin Checkles had bewecke gami hiener, wound down ferstich, the hulum grow through down. Zulche peinach boven zag a sjouwe op ma hoelen naar a hulum gure gunnemie, kolholle naam of kroeswijn. Gur a mishe gavan tuainach, a cuach vich je laundrish, a liwit henne chova, go chorrer as mich jauni. A liwit broos oosel, gan door mi joch is traunja, chanach ga mich op oosel, ri cuach vich je laundrish, haram daidel diddle, dum da diddle diddle diddle. And then,
Well, how appropriate too on the heels of Beltane and Gaelic month starts tomorrow here in Nova Scotia, and happens to be the gentleman's birthday as well. David's birthday tomorrow, May 1st. How fitting of a true Gael. And we had a little surprise cake even. Gail whipped that up. And it was a treat. So all things to celebrate. But that also makes me think of both of your Gaelic journeys, in all of your musical journeys and your studies. How did you find your path into Gaelic, if that's
I've not often asked that question.
Okay.
And that's, I guess from a young age, there was Gaelic around when, like my mom was involved with some Gaelic organizations and things like that when I was young, and sang Gaelic lullabies and that kind of thing. But later it was my older sister, Tara, who got interested in Gaelic ahead of me. And she went over to Scotland, and she's still there, actually. Hi, Tara, if you're watching. And so she studied Gaelic. I followed kind of in her footsteps a little bit, taking an interest. And she was good to kind of tutor me if I was, any questions and that kind of thing. So that was a good help. And anyway, I finished through high school. I had it with Margie B. And in high school, and I had Bernard Cameron at Bayview, and then university, and did a Celtic Studies degree, and then did an education degree to teach Gaelic, and then I was working at the college for a number of years in Gaelic. So yeah.
Great. And it stays with you, and you're able to keep.
Oh yeah,
using it.
I was surprised how much I actually used it in Toronto. Like the last, I was in seminary the last 6 years. And there's a Toronto Gaelic Society in Toronto. So if you're in Toronto and you're interested in Gaelic, look up the Toronto Gaelic Society. They usually have some nice events and like conversation groups and things like that. So that was really good. Kept it up a little bit.
It is really good to encourage that, because the more that I live, the longer I live, the more you hear of societies and groups and like-minded people that are all over North America, certainly.
That's true.
So there's ways to learn in your own little Gaelic, I guess. What about you, Joe? You've been cracking at the Gaelic for a while yourself.
Yeah, I guess. I always heard it. It's my grandmother's first language, so I'd hear bits and pieces of it as a little kid. And then grade 4, I went to school in Port Hood, and once you start grade 4, you can take Gaelic. And so I was in Bernard Cameron's Gaelic class, and then when you had the option to take either core French or core Gaelic, I went the route of Gaelic. Also through that got really interested in history and culture of the Scottish, the Gaels. Became very proud of that. And then in high school I was encouraged to join the Gaishkigaga program. So I think it was year 2 of that. I was the second round of that. That brought it a lot further, and so also around that time getting involved in the music, and then seeing how the music and the language and the history all connect. And so it's always been a very present, very prominent reality.
Yeah.
It's been great, and that was how I got into it.
Right.
And there's always been people in that world, I guess, around through the music and through just living in Cape Breton.
Yes.
So yeah.
Well, we're so proud of these young people and people are learning so much more than one thing, just different disciplines and how they cross over, which is so holistic. So 2 great Gaels as we usher in Gaelic month.
3 great Gaels. What are you talking about?
We're all Gaels. Yes, right. Tunes, I suppose. What strikes you?
I'll find out in a second.
tunes, and you ended with the oh, I forget it.
Wing Commander
The wing.
Donald Mackenzie.
Yes, Phil Tiny Moves. Great real. Wicked stuff all together. Oh my gosh! What are any other? I mean, you're both playing in those. Or are you playing at your fundraiser there, David? Where can people find you?
Where do people? I'm on Master Shut-ins.
What are you?
Yeah, I was on this past Sunday. I'll be on a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Circle your calendars.
Well, that's sad. That's probably the only, unless you see at a funeral or something like that. So.
They're gigs.
Yeah, that's right.
And Joe, you were just playing in Ceilidh there.
Yep. Yeah, Sunday I was there.
And then you'll be doing that fundraiser.
Yeah, May 19th.
Yes. And then I have to put a little plug in for these two fellas are both, if you want to learn from them, they're both teaching at the college this summer in Adult Session 2, we call it. So that's August 11th to 15th. So Joe teaching fiddle, again, Joe's taught there before. And then David is in the teaching role maybe for the first time in this capacity.
Yes, yeah.
In the summer session that you're not a long time staff member with us, David. And you're teaching Gaelic language and maybe some song and a little guitar. Yeah,
That's right.
which is so great.
Yeah.
We're excited.
Oh, I'm excited. It's going to be a great week.
It's going to be a great week.
Yeah.
And if you're coming and you're thinking, how do I get confession? We can fit that in.
That's right.
Free, or
Yes.
give a good deal.
That's right.
So we couldn't get some steps. Are we pushing our buttons by getting?
Well, we didn't test run. I don't know.
And Gail
Well, we're not
especially.
anything over. She has so many nice things.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
And I know we don't want to overuse our welcome here if we were to dance. Would anything fall and break, do you think? Everything, maybe, Gail.
Go ahead, dance.
Yeah, Mary dance. Because I'll knock things down. I can dance, sure, if you like.
Right to your feet.
That'd be
Yeah,
great.
I'm trying to be light on my feet. Yeah. That's, I was in St. Peter's one time, somebody said, "You're awful light on your feet for a fat fellow."
No!
Yeah.
You just
Should
have
I wear
to-
my shoes or should I? No.
Whatever suits you. Maybe your shoes would scuff the floor.
Yeah.
It's very traditional dancing. Some
Yes.
people.
Too many things in my pocket.
any requests. There's just such a knowledgeable audience among us. Are there favorite tunes that you
King
love?
George is real.
What is it?
King George is real.
Oh, you
I love it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
the harder the better. When they get into that and really get deep into it,
Yes.
really,
Yeah.
We can do some
That's a good one. Do some hearts. You want?
Marty,
Yeah.
Bucky Carmichael, and Diana Catherine, they used to play this with us.
Oh yeah.
Years
That's
ago.
right. I never did hear Bucky play,
Yeah.
but you're right. Near locally?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bucky was a very loyal foundation member at the college. Yeah. Wonderful. Well,
Hard stuff for after the light. King George?
can't help. I mean, would you have tried to embody somebody when you play those tunes?
Oh, probably.
Quintessential.
Yeah. It's pretty ingrained. It's like kind of like whatever accent you wind up with is the influence of whatever you're hearing.
Yeah.
I used to try and sound exactly like Buddy, but I suppose I have my own sound. I don't know.
You sure do, yeah. But there's such a flavor to it that you can tell your MacMaster nature is
Yeah.
in there.
Hopefully.
Oh yeah, it's thick. Well, we might wrap up with one more whatever we want to do, if that makes good sense of time. Anything I'm forgetting, Gail? What am I forgetting?
Nothing.
Nothing? No. She'll tell me later. But a few things to mention. Thank you for tuning in. We've had such a loyal crowd that watches so regularly and has made this On the Road series really fun and a big something that we look forward to. So this is the last of those. So you're very much welcome to join us in person at Mackenzie Hall. Am I looking at the right place, Ryan?
Yeah, you're good.
Are you
Yeah,
sure?
you look wherever you
Okay.
want.
Join us in Mackenzie Hall next Wednesday, this time, 7:30 to 9. We'll do the full hour and a half. We have Troy McGilvery and Andrea Beaton and Michael Kavanagh back.
Nice.
So you'll be in good company there, as well as our Incorsa Boki students are on site learning all month. Very fitting again with Gaelic month. So we have students from as close as Long Point to as far away as Scotland and Australia on campus right now for the month learning Gaelic with us. So make them feel welcome too. Come on by and get to meet the students. And those will run those Ceilidhs until we break at Christmas pretty much. We're pretty well straight through, so you can always keep us in mind on a Wednesday night to stop by St. Anne's. And if you're so inclined and so encouraged by all of this, you're very much welcome to donate. I feel like Ryan's clicking do you have a link to
You're just
send?
gonna put it up there now.
Just in case. You can also check out our website and there's a donate section there and you can find different ways to donate. But also if you're wanting to talk to someone about a donation, how to set up maybe something in memory of someone, sponsoring a Ceilidh, sponsoring a bursary. We have our bursaries going to be doled out real soon to students that are coming this summer. And your help would be very warranted there as well. So there's lots of ways to be involved and keep tuning in. Ryan will be set up next week in St. Anne's.
Yep.
So you can still count on us for that. You can find these on YouTube, and if you ever want to go back and watch last year's with Gail and the interview with Clay and all of the rest, that's all still there and on demand, if you will. I think that's just about everything. What should we end off with, fellas?
Fiddle music.
Fiddle music. That's
Fiddle
our
there.
Yeah.
What key go with that, maybe?
Yeah.
almost